Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Wednesday morning board meeting. Today is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order again at 9 a.m. sharp. And you can join today's board meeting via phone. Dial 971-254-3149, conference ID 736-023-979#. Audio capabilities are listen only and offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going online to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we start, we'd like to remind everyone to please mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. So public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email again publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. So Deb, do we have anyone signed up in the room, or has anyone registered online for public comment?
No.
None. Okay, thank you. So again, we call this meeting to order. Want to welcome everyone. If you are in the room, we ask you to please sign our guest list. Let's start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Bell, would you lead us, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no public comment. I do not believe we have any non-agenda items. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So we're going to open today with a presentation, and I'm looking forward to this one. This is from the Stuckanescowan and Sand Lake Watersheds Council, 2022, their annual report. And this is presented by Dave Shively, Executive Director, the Stuckanescowan Sand Lake Watersheds Council. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Good morning, Commissioner Yamamoto, Commissioner Starr, Commissioner Bell. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am the new Executive Director of the Watershed Council as of a year ago, approximately. You've had reports by my predecessor, Barshan Abraham, previously. So it's my pleasure to come and talk to you about our work during the last year. I did not give you a report in 2021, and my apologies for that. I was new to the council, trying to come up to speed on our projects, make sense of past projects. It was also pandemic years, so a lot going on. But I'm pleased to have this opportunity to talk with you today. I was told to unmute. Hopefully,
No, you should unmute. You should be unmuted. The internal electronics in this room will broadcast everybody. However, do you have a PowerPoint presentation?
I do.
And you have share options?
Yep, here it comes.
Perfect. Okay, here we go.
So I provided you a PDF of my annual report. This presentation goes into a little greater detail. And so I'll present quite a bit of information to you and save some time for questions, of course. So I appreciate the opportunity again.
Dave?
As you know, the mission of our council is to work in partnership with private and governmental stakeholders to improve the environmental health of our watersheds, to benefit those who live and work within their boundaries, and for the fish and wildlife that depend on them. I want to talk to you about a number of restoration projects. First, a couple of projects in past projects. The first one that I'd like to talk to you about is the Alder Creek Aquatic Organism Passage Project, which is a fish passage improvement project. This was on Alder Creek between Hebo and Dolph at near the 7-mile marker on Highway 22. It was a tract of private forest land that had a couple of culverts, a double-barreled culvert that was compromised, so it represented a full to partial barrier depending upon the degree of fouling with debris and sediment. They were undersized. They were also perched, as you can see in the image near the top here. I think my cursor does show up. This posed a barrier for passage of all types of aquatic organisms. The culverts were also at risk of failure, and they impeded natural stream process. And so we undertook this project with the Natural Resource Conservation Service with an EQUIP grant. They were the primary funder, but we also had funding from the U.S. Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The total project cost was approximately $300,000 with about $250,000 actual cash investment. We replaced those culverts with an aluminum box culvert, and you can see that in the screen at the image at bottom right. This was a 25.5-foot aluminum box culvert. It opened up over 2 miles of aquatic habitat for coho, chinook, cutthroat, trout, steelhead, lamprey, and more. So all organisms are able to move through the project and utilize habitat above and below. We did a fish salvage at the time of just prior to project construction, and here you can see the culverts being removed. We had Coastway Construction from the city as a contractor on this project. They did a fantastic job.
So Dave, can I ask you to back up a slide, please?
Yes.
So
I think I can do that.
you say it's a box culvert, but when I look at it, I think, wow, it looks like a bridge.
It looks like a bridge.
Yes.
Yes. The reason why it's called a box culvert is it's one-piece composite culvert. There is a plate, or actually several plates at the bottom buried under the stream bed that was reconstructed through it. Okay. There were several dozen pieces that represented the plates for the culvert and over 3,000 fasteners. So it was quite a bit of work to get this assembled. I'm not sure that we had another of these outside of the Chance Creek over near the Port Tillamook installed in the county. So we're interested in these moving forward.
So I don't think this is a vehicular passage, is that correct? Or is it a?
It is. It's a private road, and that private road provides access to the forest tract, but also to the BPA transmission corridor that sits behind the property.
Wow.
So, yeah, this has to carry not only passenger vehicles, but heavy vehicles as well.
Heavy vehicles as well. And it is rated for large trucks.
Interesting.
Yeah. I like
The
portion.
next slide, can you tell us what fish salvage means in this context?
Sure, absolutely. When we isolate a section of stream channel for implementation of a project like this, including reconstruction of the stream bed, we will have to de-water that. And as we de-water that, we want to make sure that all aquatic organisms that are present have actually been removed from the project area. And so we'll isolate the area with seine nets, then use electrofishing and dip nets to move the fish out. We utilized lamprey shocking or electronic shocking equipment for this particular project after we made the first couple of passes. And this lamprey equipment allowed us to secure quite a number of lamprey that were juveniles for the most part. But we were able to relocate those. We had the contractors actually helping with this as well. Everybody gets involved. They
Like a
feel the
little
best.
kid that went out to a stream and tried to catch those little fish,
It's,
right?
it's biology field day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fish and frogs and all the things we caught as kids out of our streams.
Sure. Yeah, so we've had fish moving through the project, spawning in it and above it and below
Nice.
it. Here we have a fall Chinook salmon that spawned and expired. The landowners were feeling a little bit bittersweet about that, saving the fish carcass, but they realized that's what we were after.
Right?
people don't realize the nutrients that come from the salmon once they are done spawning and they do pass away. And nutrients are a very important part of stream health, which is terrific.
Absolutely. That was the point I was going to make.
Oh,
Appreciate
sorry.
that you
I'm
did.
sorry.
I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that you know this. That's terrific.
I'm sorry.
Not at all. This was this Butte Creek Bridge project that I want to talk to you about next, to the northeast of the village of Nescoin. It was a project that came on our radar screen early in the year following the November 2021 flood. There was a compromised, aging, and wooden bridge at the property. The property is owned by the North Coast Land Conservancy, but it provides access to a number of residents who live on the other side of the bridge. It's their sole means of ingress and egress. They were concerned that the bridge would fail, and you can see in the image at the top here that it was a kind of a a wonky wooden bridge with some eco blocks in the foreground here. We had a contractor actually place some steel plates to cover a rupture between the bridge and the road approach. This project, we secured some funding from Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, some drought relief funds that they released for aquatic organism passage type projects like this one. It was an approximate $96,000 project. We replaced the wooden bridge with a rail car bridge, a steel rail car bridge. It's rated at 80,000 pounds gross vehicle weight, so it can support emergency and fire vehicles. It's improved passage to over 2 miles of aquatic habitat for the usual suspects. Chinook, coho, lamprey, steelhead, type of trout. And of course, the salamanders and crayfish and scorpions. The usual suspects. Yeah, this was a nice project. It was important to do for the residents, and we're glad to have been able to accomplish it. Another project that's currently underway is what I'll call the Proposal Rock Loop Sutton Creek Design Project. This is focused on the lowest, most road crossing of Sutton Creek, just to the south of the main village of Nescoin in the Proposal Rock neighborhood. As you recall, probably this culvert began to fail, or it did fail completely, as a result of the November 2021 flood. And you can see some of that in the image here. This image at the top left shows flooding in that Proposal Rock neighborhood. This was produced largely as a result of clogging of the two culverts, as well as some hydraulic damming by Nescoin Creek itself. The image to the upper right here is showing how the road crossing itself began to be eroded by the floodwaters as they were passing over the road surface, resulting in quite a bit of excavation of road fill across that crossing. And at the bottom right, you can see that pipe that was intended to carry all of the flow, which is grossly undersized. It became clogged with debris. It was actually squished, and contractors restored its shape by using a tree that happened to have lodged in the area and kind of reamed it back out so that it was circular. The residents have interest in seeing this restored to a passage project that can accommodate floodwaters, but also fish passage. And so we secured Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife drought relief funds again for 100% designs on this. The designs are currently in progress. We will be looking at aluminum box culvert with bridge options. The engineers will help us to determine what the best crossing option will be. We have Stillwater Sciences working on this. It'll improve passage for 1+ miles of habitat for all the suspects, including access to Beaver Wetland Complex back behind this neighborhood. We will hopefully secure some NOAA funding. We requested funding via Salmon Superhighway Initiative for this project as well as some others. So it's not currently passable. There is alternative access and egress. The fire marshal was interested in seeing this fully restored to these are some of our other critters. This slide is a little out of sequence from what I had given. I realized I was out of sequence, and I wanted to talk about our stream side planning just briefly. One of the important things that the council does is work with private landowners to improve riparian habitat. And so we have an independent contractor that we work with, and grant funds from the Department of Environmental Quality and Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board small grants, where we designate funds for riparian improvement. We worked on, it wasn't a great year for plantings, but we had new plantings of more than 1.5 acres and maintenance of past plantings on more than 5 acres of property. And so that's an important thing, that we come back and do the maintenance on these, make sure that the seedlings are surviving, that we clear vegetation so that they can still have room to grow and reach free growth status over several years. Some 2021 completed projects that I wanted to just bring to your attention are importantly the Mascoin Emergency Egress Fish Passage Improvement Project, which you're quite familiar with, I know. You'll see this pop up in another slide that follows. We also had a Rover Creek culvert replacement project on the access road to Camp Merriweather, the Boy Scout camp. That was completed in summer of 2021. We have some signage going in soon that will call out the work that the council does, Salmonid, life history, watershed processes, and give attention to the partnership that was involved in this, which was U.S. Forest Service, Salmon Superhighway, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the council, of course. So we also had quite a number of riparian planning projects, and primarily in the Nestucca and Little Nestucca basins. In terms of education outreach, it's been a year of regrouping in this regard, coming off the pandemic. We were able, 3 years after last Nestucca Bay cleanup, to do another of what is normally a biannual event. And here we had a number of volunteers, nearly 40 volunteers, collecting a half a ton of trash that was properly disposed of. We had co-sponsors, which included Solve, Oregon Solve, Nestucca Anglers, Earth Day Oregon programming, and a number of local businesses and organizations that supported this effort, which is an effort we all look forward to, and we regard this one as being pretty successful. For those in the audience who would like to learn more about the council and our work, please join our Facebook and Instagram accounts, and you can find us on the web at nestuccawaters.org. We did a little bit of work with NORP, the Northwest Oregon Restoration Partnership, in terms of doing some transplanting. This is something that we do every year. It helps us to secure a discount on seedlings that we use in our riparian plantings, but we're really happy to engage in the work and meet new people, new stakeholders in the basin. We had a number of board members and family members participate in this one. I don't want to detail all of these. These are other outreach activities that I've been engaged in, and our new monitoring and outreach coordinator, Sarah Norbaum, will continue to be engaged in. But some that I want to bring to your attention would be the Tillamook Working Lands and Waters Cooperatives legislative visitor event this last spring, where I gave a brief presentation on how our council works with natural resource-based private landowners to implement watershed restoration projects and the importance of those relationships. I also participated in a Tillamook County High School's Working Lands Career Day recently at the high school. There weren't a ton of students that I saw. They were really interested in axe throwing and getting up on the electric utility equipment. But it was fun, nonetheless. I have been quite involved with the Tillamook County Estuarine Resilience Action Planning Working Group that's been convened by Department of Land Conservation and Development, and that's work that still progresses, and we hope to identify a number of different projects that can implement green infrastructure for relief of flooding and protection of natural resources in the county, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that as time moves on. And then I was also involved with the Tillamook County Community Water Knowledge Exchange Network convened by Commissioner Scar, and look forward to continuing that work. So our Nesquin Emergency Egress and Fish Passage Improvement Project received recognition from the National Fish Habitat Partnership, the Pacific Marine and Estuarine Fish Habitat Partnership region, as a Waters to Watch project, which is a national recognition, which is really quite notable, we feel. Not a lot of people are very familiar with NFHAP, but it does a lot of work throughout the country on restoring aquatic resources, improving habitats for fish and other critters in the marine and freshwater environments. We also were a co-awardee with other Salmon Superhighway partners on the Three Rivers Cedar Creek Fish Hatchery Improvement and Restoration Project. That was one of 4 state land board awards for 2022, and we are really happy that Salmon Superhighway received that recognition. ODFW was very involved in that, of course, with project design. We have some future projects I just wanted to give you a sense for. There was a culvert replacement project on Upper Sutton Creek in the Nesquin area that had to be delayed until this coming year just because of delays in design work, but we'll be working on that. We also have a habitat improvement project with large wood in the Sand Lake watershed on 3 tributaries. So we'll be putting in large wood structures that will create additional habitat as stream flow works around those pieces of wood. We'll continue riparian planting projects, especially an old Condo Road project across from the Three Rivers boat ramp. We will be continuing with our expanded water quality monitoring, where we're monitoring stream temperatures and bacteria in streams throughout the Nestucca, Nesquin, and Sand Lake watersheds through this next summer. We deployed temperature probes this last summer. I collected those, and we're in the process of analyzing data from those. So our goal is to identify cold water refugia for primarily salmonids, but how tributaries are functioning to provide habitat during the hotter months, especially summer months. We're continuing to work with the Tillamook Estuaries Partnership on the Sitka Sedge Tidal Wetlands Project, and the council in particular will be involved with the Renegade Belts Creek crossings as those become able to be dealt with. It's complex, and as I have a chance to visit with you further in coming months and years, we'll talk more about that. We're beginning to work with ODFW on coho enhancement. So we're scoping out tributaries for large wood placements that will improve habitat for coho, hoping to take advantage of some NOAA funding that's being indicated as being quite available, and we'll see. We're also interested in working on an Nestucca Basin Coho Strategic Action Plan. You're familiar probably with the Tillamook Basin Coho Strategic Action Plan, which is in development. Tillamook Estuaries Partnership is spearheading that, but in communication with Wild Salmon Center and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, we have applied for some funding via Wild Salmon Center to implement a similar effort in the Nestucca Basin, which we think will be really helpful in terms of securing future project funding and help us to restore coho better. And we'll continue our work on planning and design work for other projects as time moves on. That's a constant thing that we do. Just wanted to tell you briefly that in the last year we had some $386,000 in work that our council brought into Tillamook County. The chart that you see on the screen here shows our history of grant income by fiscal year since 2013. You can see it's up and down, and that depends on the nature of the projects we might be implementing at a given time, and the amount of money that actually passes through our bank account. But we're on track this year to come out close to the median, which I think is a target that we should always be shooting for. And we appreciate the opportunity to help support businesses, communities, and watershed improvement throughout the county. conclude there. I probably took a little more time, but I appreciate the opportunity and see if you have any questions here that I can address.
Questions, comments?
I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I am interested in this and have been and missed. I'm not complaining that you weren't here last year. I understand why, because you're brand new. So it's nice to catch up. And I wonder if on this anniversary of your job, if you could just let us know how you find it. Like, what do you love about your job, or what has surprised you?
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner. It's been interesting. I left a career in academia. I was a professor at the University of Montana for 17 years and 4 years prior at a different school, and of course teaching throughout my graduate student years. So it's been a real transition. It's been a challenge. It's been fun to do work that I had begun to train for when I was a student in graduate school at Oregon State in the late 80s and early 90s. I wanted to be doing work like this back then, but we did not have OWEB established yet. We had GWEB. We didn't have the lottery system funding these types of projects. That began in about 96 when I was already on course to be a professor. So it's work that I never got to engage in. I worked with watershed organizations throughout my career and always really enjoyed that. And so it's been really fun and refreshing to change things up and to be engaged in the work on the ground doing restoration work. So it's been fun. Yeah.
And Dave, I also appreciate very much your presentation. It's wonderful to see the work that's happening across our county that is in protection of our environment. You know, we constantly struggle with people feeling that that isn't a priority somehow because we also have our fishing and timber industries. And I love that our watershed councils are just really making that priority so visible and so obvious. I think looking at the addition of the box culvert and the bridge and looking at these are things that were going to happen because those roadways had to be there, but it's taking that next step, which the watershed councils do for us, to ensure that we are maximizing the passage for our salmonids and other species to just expand our areas for production is amazing, right? We love that our fish can now travel up to where they probably did historically, and now we're able to do so, which is also an amazing and magical thing that somehow they remember that, right? Given the years that they could not do that. But just the appreciation for the work that our watershed councils do to make sure that we take the best advantage of a culvert replacement to not only keep roads open, but to actually improve the environment. So I thank you for that.
Right, and you know, it is required, Commissioner, by Oregon law. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife has to sign off on these culvert replacements, whether it's private land or public land, private roads or public roads. But we strive to meet standards that are above and beyond what must be done by private landowners if they're funding their own projects. And that's by dictate as well, but we really work together as teams to try to configure these projects to achieve the best natural resource outcomes that we can, as well as helping to restore and improve and maintain that transportation infrastructure, which is critical for safety and economic purposes, et cetera, et cetera.
I think if we didn't have it, you would find people very quietly trying to fix their bridge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very likely.
Right. And if you make the right thing to do the easier thing to do, then people will do that. And I think that's part of what watershed councils do for us in our county is they make the right thing to do very possible and in some ways easier when it needs to do that.
Right.
So people aren't just filling in streams by the dark of night so they can lay some boards over it and keep going. They know there's a resource available to them to do it the way that they should. And that's very, very valuable because you go out and get the money, you know, for private owners as well as when you work with the county.
Right.
And you help us meet our mandates that otherwise would be extremely challenging financially for us to do with roadways. So
Right.
just great appreciation for the work you do.
Thank you very much.
And it is terrific. You do work behind the scenes. Most people don't realize that this work is going on. There are watershed councils all over the state of Oregon, especially on the coast. And Dave, I just have to tell you that the Stuckanesco and Sand Lake Watershed Council has to be one of the very top watershed councils in the state of Oregon because of all the work that you get done in conjunction with our Public Works Department, with Soil and Water Conservation, Salmon Superhighway, that has been a terrific addition. And I'm glad to see that that is continuing on. You work with PEP. You partner with so many different agencies and local landowners. That's one of the keys that most people don't understand. You have to partner, especially with the private landowners, because oftentimes these creeks and streams and culverts and bridges that are decaying are on private property, and it's difficult to leave them to their own devices, because one way or another they will make sure that they continue to have passage over these rivers and streams and creeks, but it needs to be done the right way. And that's where the watershed councils, especially in the Stuckanesco and Sound Lake, really do step up. Bring in the money. You help our Public Works Department. Hopefully they help you a lot also at the same time. But you get the work done. You keep the passage open, but you also open up other passage for fish, salmonids, salmon. The giant salamander picture was incredible.
Yeah.
It is. Lampreys. People don't realize there are more than just cutthroat trout and salmon in our rivers and streams and creeks. There's a ton of other wildlife that needs to be there, needs to be maintained. And in some respects, especially to private landowners, it can be kind of an afterthought. That's where the watershed councils come in and do just terrific work. And I for one appreciate very much everything you're doing here. Since I've been a commissioner in a short 6 years, you were the third council coordinator for the Stuckanesco and Sound Lake Watershed Council. And I'll tell you, every one of you, every one of the three that I recall, have made a huge difference.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I appreciate very much you being here. I want you to continue doing what you're doing, because you are really helping tell Tillamook County's story. Tillamook County does have an absolute great story to tell. I know people get tired of hearing this, but again, when it comes to clean water, habitat restoration, and fish recovery, no Oregon County does this better than Tillamook. Prime examples of why I'm able to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a challenge. We have small staff. When I joined the council, I could see that it's been highly effective in all the years, we're talking decades, that it's been in existence. And it's something that we want to continue. We want to continue to try to grow the council so that we have more capacity, because there is a lot of things done.
I was also interested to see your slide. I think it was a project that's ongoing, and it may have been Sutton Creek, but it's the one that's in Nesco and flooded in 2021.
Correct.
I'm very interested in that, because when it flooded, it was a surprise, and I wondered why, and I'm sure the community wondered the same. And so I'm really grateful for this kind of work, because we need to figure out why indeed that flooded and how to prevent it from happening in the future, but also the combination of being able to do the work you do to restore fish habitat and to protect private property. You know, that's the intersection. There are all kinds of folks in Nescoin who obviously are impacted by that flood, and so I'm really grateful that those things work hand in hand. That we can protect fish and protect people and their property, and safe passage for fish and people. So I think that's great.
We want to improve the situation there to protect people better. It's not to say that they won't be impacted by floods in the future, but we can pass the waters more quickly. The fish passage will be improved, and hopefully community safety will be improved as well. So we try to work with that, but with some caveats to make sure that residents understand we're not solving the flooding problem. That's not something we can do. That's somebody else's domain.
You live in Tillamook County, I think that's Mother Nature's
I think
domain,
so.
and we all need our rubber boots and our emergency kits and our evacuation plans.
Yes, indeed.
Dave, again, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time very much.
My pleasure.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Will do.
Right. Okay, moving on, let's go to our legislative administrative calendar. Item number 6, discussion and consideration of an application to the State of Oregon Department of Environmental Quality's Clean Water State Revolving Fund for improvements at the Manzanita Transfer Station. With us this morning, David McCall, Solid Waste Program Manager. Good morning, David.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. So Commissioners, you may recall a few months ago, I came to you with first there was an engineering contract, and then that was followed by a construction contract for the improvements at the Manzanita Transfer Station. When we went through the engineering, we had planned to do our improvements in 2 phases. Phase 1 would be what we call the west wall, which would be adding additional capacity and so that we can deal with and take in more solid waste, which we've been subjected to over the last few years. Quantities have increased significantly, and this is all part of a planning process that started back in 2017 or 2018. And then once that west wall project was done, we would go into what we call the east wall project, which is taking the existing Z walls and fixing them and improving them so that we would have, first we needed to get the capacity so that we could then fix what was broken. And when we went out to bid, the construction costs had increased significantly. And basically, rather than having money for 2 projects, we had money for 1 project. So we focused only on the west wall. And we said, we'll figure out how to deal with the east wall project at a later point in time. And so in the meantime, we have had some delays in actually starting construction with the permitting process and planning, but now we are ready, and any day now, the contractor will actually begin construction in Manzanita. But we have come across a funding opportunity in the form of the State Revolving Fund, which would allow us to combine the west wall project, the parts which have not yet been completed, which is all the construction, and then the construction oversight, along with the east wall project, put them in one application to the State Revolving Fund, which functions as a loan. And so you will see in this proposal, it's just over $1 million for the entire project, but $766,000 is what is actually eligible for this loan. Now that is what is storm and other water related activities, which is the majority of the things on this site, because our primary goal in dealing with solid waste is to ensure that the rainwater does not come into contact with any of that waste and thereby become processed water, but divert the storm water and make sure that that is clean and then treated in a proper way. The State Revolving Fund operates as a loan. This is an application for a loan. So if we're looking to submit the application now, if you approve the application, then it will be sent in. Any costs that are stormwater related associated with this moving from the application date are eligible for the loan. The way it's set up, it is a 30-year loan, of which the interest rate is very low, and I don't know exactly what it is. Because we're a distressed community, it's approximately 1.5% right now. But that loan rate or interest rate is determined at the time of the signing of the loan paperwork, which would be coming back to you in a few months for your approval and signature. But by doing this as a 30-year loan, it gives us a cash flow improvement, but also makes us eligible for a forgivable loan portion of this. And so of the $766,000, up to 50% of that could be turned into forgivable loan with this, meaning that on this just over $1 million project, we've designated $766,000 as stormwater related. If that is approved and goes through with that, we would only have to repay $383,000. So, this Manzanita one, because we're combining what we already had and what we weren't able to do with what we would like to do, it's a little quicker, but it's also a little bit more complicated in my explanation. My request for you, if you have any questions on that, I'm more than happy to try to answer them to the best of my abilities at this point. but we would like to request that you approve this loan application so that we can get that in there, get it on the books, get things rolling, and go on to construction then. And so if we do not get approved for this loan, then the question comes, what happens with the east wall, which we did not have funding for? And my response to that would be, we will put it back on the back burner. So we're not gonna commit to those costs until we have the funding secured for it. But this would be a way, if you look at the numbers, generally speaking, it's the numbers for the forgivable loans portion are approximately a ballpark figure about the same as that east wall portion. So by doing it this way, we may be able to essentially get a forgivable loan for equivalent to the amount of what we were missing in funding for the phase 2, if that makes sense.
Thank you, David. Second, questions?
I think this is an exciting opportunity, and thank you for pursuing it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what will qualify us for the forgivable loan part?
So anything which is covered under the stormwater equality, so water quality is what this is about. And in our case, because the old landfill is, it's a certain part of it, but it's essentially stormwater treatment, stormwater prevention, that making sure the stormwater stays clean. That's what we're looking at. I'm sorry, when I submitted this to you, I did not plan on being sick. I planned on being in the office and having access to certain pieces of data, but I don't have that right now, so I can't tell you the percentage. My recollection is it's in the 72 to 75% range that would qualify. But this one, like I said, it's a little more complicated because the engineering costs we already incurred it's like $110,000. Those are part of the project, but it's not eligible for the funding because we already incurred them. It's only things that we incur after the submission date that are actually eligible for funding, and a certain percentage of that.
Thank you. Well, we know we need to do the work, and I'm encouraged that there is a path forward that's funding that's specifically available for this kind of work. So I think it's a good idea.
Oh, one thing I did not mention, sorry, so it is a 30-year loan, but there is no penalty for early repayment. So we have to apply for the 30-year loan in order to be eligible for the loan forgiveness part. But if we at some point decide that we don't want to keep on paying for, 20 years and pay it off in 7, that is up to us, so we can do that.
Thank you. Commissioner, questions, comments?
So it references in the application that updates are being made in anticipation of forthcoming NPDES permit. Can you talk to that just a little bit for me? I don't really know what that means.
I was afraid you were going to ask. NPDES
Sorry, I was like, because it seems
National Pollution, you have your watershed council representatives, and they might be able to help me. I think it's something elimination.
Discharge elimination, says Dave and Rachel both, they're like it. So is that a permit we don't currently have to have, but we're gonna have to have in the future, and this ties into that?
So in Manzanita, once again, that's a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
All transfer stations are supposed to have one.
Okay,
It was never required in Manzanita, or they never had one.
okay,
And DEQ woke up a few months ago and realized that we didn't have one. So, I got the nasty finger because we didn't have one, and we're now in the process of getting one.
okay.
So this was in the process before, as part of this. So as part of this, it works out as well, but we don't have a permit number yet.
Okay, thank you. It just seemed, that sounded, whenever it says you need another permit, it always sounds a little scary. You're like, oh dear, what do we have there? And so it seemed like this was potentially in assistance of meeting that in anticipation of that coming. The other question I had is a very probably ridiculously minuscule one, but on page 19, where it says total funding and it says it must equal the total cost of table A, I couldn't figure out what that number was. Because it is apparently 23,000,000,
Two million.
2,327,000.
No.
No, it's
23,278,705.
And I was like, what's that number? Because it doesn't equal table A.
This is in question, which question?
It's on page 19, and it is the continuation of table B funding sources that started on page 18. And it's total funding for the project.
Oh, wow. Okay, we'll look into that. You know, this is a fillable, this may be one of the things, it's a fillable form,
Yeah.
and we found places, there are a couple boxes we also have checked that we were not unable to uncheck. So this could be one of those items where it didn't go through right,
Okay,
but,
because I was expecting that number to be the 1 million.
yeah, I think that's what it should be.
1 million, yeah, instead of the 23 million, so, just slightly confused, making sure we were not committing to somehow a $23 million project, certainly in a repayable loan.
Yeah. And on that note, remember, we're not committing today, we're applying.
Correct, yes. But no, and I echo Commissioner Bell, I appreciate what you found in way of an opportunity that can get us where we know we need to go and to do so more rapidly, and with what can be a forgivable loan. So, forgive my nitpicking, I do appreciate very much the work that you're doing.
I appreciate you nitpicking, thank you.
So David, I appreciate it also. I do know we've got a second non-point source project long application coming up for the Pacific City Transfer Station for even more money. So, I take it legal has, our county council has looked at both of these.
I have, David,
Has Sean had a chance to look at this? And there she is.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I've had multiple conversations with David about this.
And so, worst case scenario, if we don't get the forgivable portion forgiven, how is that, what kind of position is that going to put solid waste and or public works?
So, let me jump in, Sean. Worst case scenario, if we do not get this in the forgivable portion, we do not go forward with the east wall section, the phase 2 section of improving this, which means that's what we didn't have funding for, and it's put on the back burner. We're still going through with the west wall. It's ready. It's going into construction. We've got the funding for that. That'll give us the additional capacity. So we would not be able to make the repairs to the east wall portion, which will be basically, cordoned off and inaccessible. And over the years, we will find enough money to make those repairs. But it's not gonna impact the operation significantly.
So I think what I just heard you say, that if you go ahead and, if we approve this application for funding, of which the funded portion would be roughly $766,153, and I don't know when, so I'm concerned, I'm confused about the timeline, I guess. So if we were able to get this loan, 30-year loan, and at that point, once you get the loan, you would try to see if that portion would be forgivable, and if it were not forgivable, you would cut back on the project and not spend all of that money. Is that correct?
So when we get to contract phase with this loan, it will be clear what's forgivable, what's not forgivable.
Okay.
And DEQ, State Revolving Fund, puts the forgivable part at the front of things.
Okay.
So say that we ask for $500,000 reimbursement, they give us the $500,000 and then update the loan agreement to say we owe $250,000.
Okay.
So they automatically put the 50% forgivable at the beginning, not at the end. If this does not move forward, if it doesn't work out, then we won't move forward with this phase 2 east wall repair portion.
Okay.
or more, said more clearly, we will only move forward with the bidding of that and putting that out to bid when we have this agreement in place.
Okay.
Which clearly defines what's forgivable.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. That makes this more understandable to me. I think we do need to look at that, total funding of $23,278,705, see exactly what that is. But David, again, I appreciate very much you finding this possible source of getting work done that you need to get done, at both transfer stations. And the Pacific City Transfer Station is coming up next. So with that, and Sean, I'll ask you once more, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does, Commissioner. David and I have had multiple conversations when he found a source
Okay,
to potentially get the work done.
okay. So I'll ask, county council, so that one area that is in question, the $23,278,705 figure, can we approve moving ahead with this based on, we find out exactly what that number means
Well, I think-
before it's
I
signed?
think David's gonna have to look at it and modify it after you sign it. Is that possible, David?
Yeah, so I'll actually interject, Commissioner Yamamoto. It's not a physical signature on this, and it's an electronic signature. And so in the PDF that you have, we'll check, you may be able to change that $23 million number to the $1 million
Okay,
before you actually put your electronic signature on it.
okay,
I do wonder, David, if it's a form thing, because when I look at the other one, it comes up as a $26 million project. So I do wonder if the form itself is adding some number and sticking it in there, so. I don't, in terms of approval, it seems, I don't know if we would want to put just a dollar amount in our approval motion. That would allow us then to go ahead and make an approval and then figure out the actual formulaic problem in the form. Because it looks like it may be something in their fillable PDF that's sticking a nonsense number in there. So maybe if we just added to our motion the amount, does that seem like that might, council cover it?
So Dave, it should be the number on page 18 that says total cost, is that correct?
Correct, the $1 million and $1,006,000, et cetera.
Okay.
So we'd approve the total cost amount as opposed to the, amount funded by CWSRF amount, which is actually the requested loan amount, correct?
Oh, actually, no.
I'm not positive about that either.
Yeah, because I look at table B where it says funding sources, and the actual loan amount we are asking for is 766,153. It would appear again on this form. But there are other pieces of the project, which I assume are the amount we've already funded of the west wall would be the other piece that's making up the total cost. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, and there are certain items that are not eligible for
Right.
this loan. You know, I mean, when we, for example, striping on the asphalt,
Right.
that's not something that,
Yeah, so it would appear we would approve it with the request of a loan amount of 766,153.
That's how I would read it also.
For this one, and then when we get to the other one, it would be a loan amount of $1,753,883, and that is again found in table B on page 18 of the second one as well. So if we're understanding correctly, I think, David, what we're asking for, that would be my recommendation, and then that weird number in the form, because I'm wondering if the form itself isn't wonky, which can happen.
So Bill, I'm looking for your recommendation here. Should we go ahead and do this today based on,
I was wondering,
New
I don't
information.
know if David needs it right away. David, would it be better to maybe fill the form out correctly and bring it in front of the board, next week? I don't know.
so the submission deadline is Friday. Therefore, if we don't do it this week, we lose 4 months
Okay.
until the submission round.
So I'm comfortable just amending the motion so that it includes the amount that we are asking for in terms of the permanent loan amount, and then David can figure out what their fillable form is doing for us, that it's doing incorrectly, before it's actually submitted.
I would hate to lose access to this.
I agree. Yeah, over a form, over a function of a form. And I certainly have received plenty of fillable forms in my day that think they're adding correctly, then are not. And then it turns out to be a locked field, and you have to call, and everybody's like, wow, how did that happen?
I would say something about the state of Oregon, but I won't. Okay, so, can we have a motion to approve, maybe, how do we do that, as amended?
Yeah, or maybe Commissioner Stark.
I think if Commissioner Bell understands, I mean, it's just putting the dollar amount in there. You ready?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of an application to the State of Oregon Department of Environmental Quality's Clean Water State Revolving Fund for $766,153 for improvements at the Manzanita Transfer Station.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, David. You've got the next one also. Item number 7, discussion and consideration of an application to the State of Oregon Department of Environmental Quality Clean Water State Revolving Fund for improvement at the Pacific City Transfer Station. David McCall.
Yeah, so this is, thankfully I don't have to explain how this loan works again. I just did that. This is for Pacific City. This is for a larger project because what we have in Pacific City is, I'll say much less than it should be. We do not have, this is not just expanding capacity for trash on the Z-walls, but it's also constructing a building in which we can collect the recyclables and store equipment and things like that down there. Right now, we have nothing that is permanent or physical there at this time. Sorry.
We're all looking at our phones going, is that mine? Is that mine?
They all at the wrong time. So we don't have a building down there. This would be for the construction of a building. This is, we started this a few years ago looking how we can put a building up there. And in the process found, geotechnical issues that we went through. We also found that, as you know, each of our transfer stations is located on or next to a closed landfill. The landfill we found trash in an area which we didn't think it should have been in, and so that has altered our calculations as well, and altered the way we've had to move forward, or we're able to move forward. So this would be adding additional Z-walls there, improving the Z-walls. The Z-walls we have there were constructed in the 70s, put into use in 81, and they are creosote timber walls, which it is amazing that they're still holding together, but that is not a good thing, and we need to get away from this. They are failing, and creosote is not a chemical compound that we would like to see mixing with stormwater in any area. At this site as well, we do not currently have an MPDES permit. We are currently under an exemption because the site is so small and there was so little opportunity to interact. We anticipate that will be changing into a requirement in the future. Between you and me and everybody listening in, I was surprised that we got the exemption permit the last time that we got it, but we do have it for another year. Sooner or later, we will require to have MPD permit on this site. And I anticipate that by putting in the building, changing the Z-walls and things, that will trigger that requirement. Because we are right across the road from the wildlife refuge, this is an increasingly sensitive area and site, so it's really important that the stormwater we have does not come into contact with waste, and it is treated properly and stays clean for that. So this is a slightly larger project because of those items, It's also a little bit longer in its time frame because we don't have, as much work done already. But on the flip side, because we have not done that work already, a larger portion of it is eligible for the loan. Assuming this, so this is just over $2 million for a project cost. The stormwater related is about 1.75. And assuming that they accept all of that as stormwater related, we would be hitting the max for the forgivable loan of $500,000. And the way I calculate it, assuming $1.75 million and reduced by $500,000 for the forgivable loan part, that leaves us with $1.25 million over 30 years. That's approximately $40,000 per year. The time. And once again, we are distressed communities, so the interest rate is currently in the 1.5% range. It's fixed over the time, but set at the time of signing. This is an application, not a contract. There is no penalty if we choose to repay it earlier. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee did discuss this at length and recommended that the board move forward with the approval of this application. Clearly, that is with the correction of the $20-some million to the $1.75 million. Do you have any questions for me on this?
Comments, questions?
I'm assuming, because Sean told us that she's gone through this with you several times, that you guys talked about the revenue, the solid waste revenue, and that it's adequate to service these debts. I'm assuming that, but you can just tell us.
Yeah, we put $100,000 to $150,000 a year into our sinking fund. This is, like I said, calculating back of the envelope, $40,000 a year. So the 100 to 150 is adequate to cover this.
Great.
And Sean, I would take that at 1.5%, it's probably the best loan we're going to get.
I would agree that 1.5% is probably the best loan we're going to get. Yes.
Okay, so it's great when all these right people come together and all agree that this is the way to go. That helps me a lot on this. It really does. Okay, so Sean, do you have any other comments on any of this? You good with it?
No, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay. Council?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Glad somebody caught that difference of amount. I'm sitting there wondering how I did.
Okay. With that, I think we're looking for an amended motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of an application to the State of Oregon Department of Environmental Quality Clean Water State Revolving Fund for $1,753,883 for improvements at the Pacific City Transfer Station.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? One thing. So David, when do you think I would be signing this? This week before Friday, so, right?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
at your discretion. I can send you the form directly. I can try to fix that one and see if it fixes or not, but I can
Okay.
send it to your email directly
Okay.
so that you have it for electronic signature and can turn it around to me.
As long as it's electric especially, because I am leaving tomorrow afternoon for Coos Bay for the OPAC, Ocean Policy Advisory Council meeting on Friday. But as long
I'll
as
have it
it's
to you within the next hour.
That's perfect. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, David. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Sean. Okay, item number 8, discussion and consideration of a memorandum of agreement with the Northwest Regional Education Service District for Behavioral Safety Assessment Team Services. With us this morning, we've got Director of our Juvenile Department, Matt Tennell. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Commissioners. What you've got in front of you is actually 2 documents. One's a confidentiality agreement, and the other is the memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding. And basically what this does is this allows us to participate in the school safety threat assessment process that's kind of overseen by the Northwest Regional ESD. We've participated in a lot of these meetings kind of on an unofficial basis many times over the years, and as you can probably guess the school system is a critical part of the coordination, planning, and service delivery of agencies serving children and youth, and this kind of formalizes our ability to participate, exchange information, and participate in all the other activities associated with it. I will say that for a fleeting moment, I considered just signing this and flipping it back, but then I thought better of it and asked Rachel and County Council, so here we are. And I believe that the confidentiality agreement can just be signed by me, and I noticed that that's also on the agenda, so if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer, and I would also ask for board's approval on that.
Thank you, Matt. Comments, questions?
I'm glad your staff's gonna participate in that training, it seems really important.
Yeah, I actually that's actually where this agreement came from. I sent both of our staff to a training that was conducted over at Portland Community College about this, and then they shot this agreement to me asking us to sign it and to kind of get on board as an official named partner in the process.
Great. Yeah, and I agree, it's a crucial piece of the service that's out there, and I think that having you all involved is something that you need to be at the table as we look at this, because as those risks are identified, these are the students that you're going to find yourself working with.
Mm-hmm.
You already do, so being an official party at the table will be very helpful, I would think, for you as well. And that's certainly what I read into the confidentiality agreement piece, was it just allows that free exchange of information,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you have a young person that you are talking to, you get the full benefit of knowing what others know, that can help you provide the best help possible, because that's really what you all do. You're such an amazing, it's a support system. And I know until I became a commissioner, I wouldn't acknowledge that. I didn't really know what juvenile did, and I assumed you were part of the law enforcement loop, and really recognizing that you are not. You are the support system for juvenile and that very pre-law enforcement, and appreciate that part of what you do. And so it's important that you have this information up front, that we're trying to keep kids out of that system. You do a lot of work that's much more social work related.
I think of us as kind of a patchwork between public safety, judicial, and social work. So we're kind of in a weird space in this weird Venn diagram between all those functions.
Yeah, but you do a lot of social services, and it's crucial.
Yep.
That you have the information to know what the right steps are.
Correct.
And this seems part of that.
It's just a sad state of affairs to me that we've got to be considering things like school safety threat assessments. I don't think it's as big a deal in rural areas, especially like Tillamook County, but just can't take that stand. You can't. You're in a very difficult position. Matt, you're doing a great job at the juvenile department. We appreciate everything you're doing, this included. So whether we need to sign it or not, I think it's a good deal that you brought it before the commission.
Well, I think there's
knowing what's going on.
Yeah, I think there's a space for me as the member. We'd be the member agency, but then there's the administrative authority, and that is not me. So.
Right.
Perfect. I think we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of a memorandum of agreement with the Northwest Regional Education Service District for behavioral safety assessment team services.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Matt, you've also got the next one. Item 9, discussion and consideration of a confidentiality agreement with the Northwest Regional Education Service District. Matt Tennell.
Thank you, Commissioner. This was kind of folded into the MOU, and I believe that this is something that, as the member agency, I can just sign. And I think I would, based on our previous discussion, I would ask for board approval to go ahead and sign that and include it as part of the MOU.
Good. Comments, questions?
Nope,
Okay.
sounds good.
I know you understand the and when you're dealing with kids especially, this is information that we can't be talking about names and what happened and things of that nature. Family situations, so I know you're very familiar with that, but yeah, this is something that's part of this application, so again, appreciate you doing that for us. So with that, I think we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of a confidentiality agreement with the Northwest Regional Education Service District.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you,
so
Ben.
much, man. Appreciate it. Okay, item number 10, discussion and consideration of an order in the matter of the appointment and reappointment of members of the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation. Commissioner Scar.
Thank you. So I have the pleasure of serving on the Northwest Area Transportation Commission, and it's an opportunity to sit really with a 3-county region. We have, actually it's 4 counties, Washington County, so Tillamook, Clatsop, Columbia, Washington counties are all part of this group, and we get the opportunity once every other month to sit with ODOT to listen and learn from what they're working on in our communities, listen and learn what will be the upcoming issues, and provide them our feedback. So it's a really important commission for our community. And we have the opportunity to have 2 at-large members on this commission, and we have the appointment of a new commissioner today, as well as the reappointment of an existing commissioner. So we have Nicole Stevens, who has expressed her interest. I had her attend a Northwest ACT meeting so that she could be sure that she understood what we were really up to make sure it was something she wanted to do, and she was very excited. I chatted with her after the meeting, and she said, absolutely, this is great, I'm really interested. So we are appointing Nicole today. We have Patrick McHugh, who is in charge of the trucking piece at Tillamook County Creamery Association. So he has a very, very, been an interest in this, and he has been, he's been on this committee, and I can't tell you how long, but he was on it when I got on it 2 years ago, and is willing to be reappointed. And I think the information and input that he provides is very, very important. So today we're looking to add Nicole and to reappoint Patrick.
Any comments, questions?
Terrific. I'm grateful that they're willing to serve.
Yes, I spent time on the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation. The Creamery has always been involved. They're bringing their trucks both ways over Highway 6 constantly, and that road's been such an issue over the years. So they're a very important voice at the table. So that's perfect. Okay, so I think we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of an order in the matter of the appointment and reappointment of members to the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation.
And that's second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 11, discussion and consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Commissioner Mary Faith Bell to attend the National Association of Counties Annual Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C., February 10th through February 14th, 2023. Commissioner Bell.
Thank you. Well, I am looking forward to attending the NACO conference. I haven't yet in my time as commissioner, and so this will be my first time to go. I learned about the National Association of Counties, I have learned about it previously, but I engaged with them at the annual Association of Oregon Counties meeting. And I was softly recruited by a woman who said, we really need women in leadership in this organization. And I met Commissioner Schrader, and she talked to me about it and invited me to be on her committee. And so I am interested, and I'd like to.
Perfect, yeah, this will be my first year going as well, and I'm super excited. What I just got emails from NACO recently saying they have set up a housing task force, so of course where I'm gonna be headed for and looking for when I get to NACO is how can we work with other counties all across the nation to look for solutions to housing. So I think it's an opportunity for us to just reach out in a much larger pool of folks with suggestions for answers, so we'll be doing that.
People really, the public really has no idea what commissioners do. People just don't understand. And this is another piece of that puzzle. Yes, we interact at the local level, at the state level, but we also interact at the federal level. And being a member of NACO, being an active member of NACO, going to the annual legislative conference, going to the annual meeting, becoming a member of WIR, the Western Interstate Region, is truly very important. This is where we are able to interact with commissioners from across the nation, as well as going up to the Capitol, when we're there for the legislative conference, and walking in and speaking to all of our federal legislators at the same time. People don't understand, again, that what commissioners do is more than just on the local level. We have things, unfunded mandates, all sorts of things that come down not only from the state, but from the federal government. And our legislators need to hear from us. And this really does give us that avenue to have direct conversations with them. The lobbyists also at NACO are terrific. That they can help us move legislation, help us tamp down legislation if we so feel. So this is an important part of what commissioners do at the same time. So with that, I think we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of out-of-state travel request for Mary Faith Bell to attend the National Association of Counties NACO Annual Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C., February 10th through 14th, 2023.
And I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Item number 12, discussion and consideration of an order in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract for labor attorney services. With us, we've got Rachel Haggerty, Board of Commissioners, Chief of Staff. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. In October, Tillamook County advertised for labor attorney services. We've had the same firm for quite some time, and we were exploring some potential new options. We received 3 responses to the request for proposals. Committee met and reviewed those and selected a top candidate, and we conducted some reference checks, and the group agreed to proceed with a contract with Peck Rubinoff, and so HR and Council are finalizing that contract. Before you is a notice of intent to award a contract, which is required by the statutory process, and then we are finalizing the contract for your execution on December 21st. It could come after, but it'd be no later, or it would not be before December 21st, so it's ready for consideration.
Comments, questions?
I think it was a good process. It was good to think about what we want moving forward and to see what other firms are offering. And so I feel good about the process and the decision.
I would agree. I think we, it's one of those things where every so often you really need to look at what's out there to determine if what you have is serving you in the best possible way. And you only know that if you look at what's out there. So I think it was a good process as well, and I look forward to moving forward.
I concur with both of you.
Yeah, and if I could, David, from the attorney's perspective too, sometimes you might get stuck a little bit in a rut, and so to engage with our client and maybe understand that they may have a different direction or some cause to rethink how things are going is a good thing for council to hear that too. And in this case, through the process, we worked a different arrangement with Peck Rubinoff that engages, other attorneys who have more specialized experience in doing certain things that the county does, like the ASME negotiations that will be coming up soon. So from, I think, Peck Rubinoff's perspective too, they were pleased to participate in the competition, and it caused them to kind of look at the services they provided and how they might be able to provide better services to the board and the county from this point forward.
Thank you for that, Bill. Appreciate it. Any further discussion? So I guess we're looking for a motion first.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of an order in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract for labor attorney services.
And I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Rachel, you've got number 13 also, discussion and consideration of a sale agreement. This is exciting. With Odger Jean Rao, care of Joyce Lamb, for property located at Township 1S, Range 9W, Section 29, Tax Lot 01000, Tillamook County, Rachel Haggerty, or Board of Commissioners, Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Commissioner. The county's been exploring this property owned by Audra Jean Raw for a little bit now. It's 46.46 acres. It is zoned planned use development. It is within the city of Tillamook's urban growth boundary, off of McCormick Loop Road behind the Brookfield development, just south of the fairgrounds. I signed an offer in the form of this sale agreement on November 28th, and it has been accepted by the seller, and it is before you today for consideration and ratification. The offer is in the amount of $725,000 with $10,000 earnest money down. We have, staff has already begun the due diligence process of lining up a phase 1 environmental assessment, appraisal, and exploring with legal counsel and community development and the city of Tillamook the developability of the property and other proposed uses that the county may be interested in, and we're shooting for closing at the end of January pending the completion of the due diligence items. So this property has been listed for at least 11 years as staff could find on record. It's a unique opportunity for potential future development. Within the urban growth boundary, it's an opportunity for the county to play a more leadership role in addressing our housing issues during this crisis. And it's also an opportunity for the county to diversify its investment portfolio. The money for this purchase will come from the county's investment pool with the intent of reinvesting it in real property. So ultimately the goal is for the county to help enable development to happen here without us purchasing it and just donating it. So we are expecting in the future, although things could change, to recoup our investment or more than our investment at this time. So this sale agreement is ready for your ratification today, and I think Commissioner Scar has some additional comments you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think, Rachel, you did a great job of spelling out what our intentions are. You know, I think people just will be curious as to why the county is purchasing land, and particularly in the urban growth boundary, and what are we thinking. And as Rachel said, this is very important in terms of what's still developable and available in our county, is this property within the urban growth boundary of the city of Tillamook. We don't have a lot of developable land, and as we have worked as the Housing Commission to really understand the biggest issues facing housing development in Tillamook County, developable land is at the very, very top. If you don't have a place to put housing, you're not going to have housing. So this piece of property sits within the urban growth boundary, which means that it is able to be developed. Whereas any property that sits outside of the urban growth boundaries or city limits within of our incorporated cities and our unincorporated communities, we're held to very large lot sizes, and much of it simply cannot be developed because it is farm and forest. And we are absolutely 100% support of the no net loss of farmland policy that Tillamook County Creamery stands with, and we agree. But what that means is it makes this particular piece of property inside the urban growth boundary very, very important to preserve with its housing capabilities. The Audra property had been listed at, I think it was $1.14 million for a very long time, and the price recently dropped to a listing of $799,000. And that just really felt like a good opportunity for the county to step in and ensure its purchase for housing purposes and its developability. The concern was if that property continued to drop in value, it would then become very desirable for an adjoining farm to purchase that property and essentially add it to their farm, which would have been an addition of farmland, and it would have been a loss of developable housing land. So it just felt like it was a key moment for the county to step in and say we are in support of developing housing and expanding housing for our workforce, which is what we were hearing consistently. So it seemed like the right time. The other thing about this piece of property and its developability for housing in the future is it needs some capacity work first. It's not ready right now. So the zoning that it has as planned unit development is a very broad, strange zoning, and it is something that does not give a developer any certainty as to whether or not the planning commission of the city would approve what they want to do with it. And for most of our developers that are looking out here, that just means a flat no. They're not interested if they might purchase a piece of property and find out later that the city doesn't like their vision. So one of the keys that I think that we will work on with this piece of property with the city is simply to get the zoning placed into a proper residential zoning to give future developers certainty. The other thing about this piece of property right now is with the city of Tillamook looking at and working through capacity of their sewer plant and their sewer pipelines and systems. It's not ready to be developed today. But that is, again, another project that the county has begun to work in partnership with the city on, and I expect we will continue to do so. So in purchasing this property, it allows us to help it become more developer-ready with work that we can do through our housing commission, and with funds that we have through our housing commission, so that we can ultimately help with the problem. So I mean, from my perspective, it is, as Rachel said, a great way for the county to take some leadership role in assuring housing development, because we can hold this and make these changes so that it is developer ready, and then be able to put it back out there on the market when it's ready for developers to come and get started. So.
Thank you. You sure?
I appreciate that. I think I'm grateful to Rachel for her work. I'm grateful to Commissioner Scar for bringing the possibility to us. We've had the experience of developers coming to us and saying, well, what land is available? And there's very little.
Right.
And so it seems like a win-win, because we're using investment funds to purchase this as an investment. And so, as the price has dropped, we're more and more assured that we're not going to lose anything on this investment, and it's entirely possible that will add to our investment. And when somebody comes to us and says, what's available, what land is available, we'll have some that we can presumably sell them. So I think it's not that the county is planning on getting into the housing development business, but rather that we can be part of the process by having something ready when a developer becomes available.
Thank you both. I appreciate that, and Rachel, you're doing great work here. This is an investment for the county. We currently have cash funds invested in the state LGPI account, local government investment pool, LGIP. Thank you, and that's gaining us less than 2%, quite a bit less than 2% interest. This is just another way for the county to diversify its investment portfolio. Well, at the same time, the biggest issue that I think that most of us see in this county is housing. Affordable housing, workforce housing, all levels of executive housing. We've got so much land tied up in vacation rentals and things of that nature. It's very, very difficult. And this is something that Commissioner Scar put in my mind. It just won't leave my mind. The coastal counties in Oregon, we are so limited in buildable lands. We're bounded on one side by the ocean and the beaches, which are owned by the Department of State Lands or Oregon Parks and Rec. The dunes, very little land between there and the coastal range, where again, it's very difficult to build. Even within that area, from the dunes to the mountains, we've got major flooding issues in Tillamook County. Land that really is not good for housing. So when there is so little good housing land available, it's difficult for us to look at this piece of property, which is, again, in the urban growth boundary, which is terrific, that is developable. And should we just ignore it and leave it for someone else to discover and work on? Well, again, because of the problems that it has with current zoning, no availability of water and sewer, things of that nature, it just made sense to this board to move forward with the purchase. Again, Commissioner Bell is absolutely right. I am not interested in taking this land and building homes on it and putting it up for sale. It's not what the county does. But to make sure that we hold this land for future development, for future contractors and developers to come in. And once we're able to maybe change the zoning and add sewer availability and water availability, roads, things of that nature, I think this is absolutely the right move for this county to make. And are we gonna lose money on it? Probably not. Are we gonna make money on it? Hopefully. But that's not our intent either. Our intent is to make sure that we preserve buildable lands for homes. And this is a piece of property that just made sense to us. So hopefully all of that explanation gets out to the public and they understand what we're doing. If not, you've got our number.
Yes, they do.
Yes, yes,
I
they
see Sean
do.
has popped on camera. I don't know if she
Sean,
wanted
yes.
to share a little bit about the investment side or.
Please.
Well, I just wanted to say that it's important to have a variety of investments in your investment fund. I think this is a very good opportunity, but the LGIP just went up to 3.1%.
Ooh.
So
So we better
just thought
hope we
I'd
make
share
a
that.
little money on this. Otherwise Sean's gonna come back and tell us we made a bad choice. There is some, there is some community good as well, and sometimes as the county, I don't think we want to lose money, but at the type of small interest rates we're talking about, if we benefit our community, our economy, our employers by ultimately having workforce housing here, I think that's probably worth that piece of it. At least in my mind, we own a part of this solution, and this is a step we can take.
Perfect. So I think we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of a sale agreement with Audrey Jean Raw, care of Joyce Lamb, for property located at Township 1 South, Range 9 West, Section 29, Tax Lot 1000, in Tillamook County.
And I'm delighted to second.
We have a motion and a delighted second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Perfect, thank you. Item number 14, board concerns, non-agenda items and board concerns.
I hope that Commissioner Scar is gonna tell us about the housing summit.
Well, I would be happy to, and I would happy to have Rachel chime in as a listener in the audience at the Housing Summit. So we had a wonderful Housing Summit yesterday. We held it at the Seaside Convention Center. We had approximately 200 people in attendance. The Housing Summit was designed to engage with folks from Lincoln, Tillamook, Clatsop, and Columbia counties, and we did, which was wonderful. The intention was to, first in the morning, hear from the Department of Land Conservation and Development about their recommendations that are going in front of the legislature. That report was, I believe, sent to the legislature yesterday. It was they were required under one of the House bills last year to do this, or 2 years ago, to create this report of recommendations for changes to the land use program, and they have done that. So it's great to get their presentation on those suggested changes to the Oregon Land Use Program in support of development of housing. We will see what the legislature does with that, but it has been presented to them. We then heard from Oregon Housing and Community Services, and they talked about the different funding programs that were available from the state to assist communities with developing housing. It's great to get that overview and to have that opportunity to talk to them and ask questions. We then went on and did a panel with different government organizations that are working to encourage housing across the different counties. So I talked about our housing commission, but we heard from Jeff Adams in Cannon Beach. He's working on a regional housing task force in Clatsop County. So they've gone about it a little differently. We're organized at the county level. He, as a city planner, is organizing one for Clatsop County, so that was interesting. We heard from the city of Lincoln City, and just to kind of get an idea of how our city's going about changing things in their planning department and with different incentives for developers, et cetera. And then we heard from Ariane Colombo of Colpack, talking about a project in Columbia County specific to a short-term workforce need. They are developing a large project there on the waterfront that's going to take hundreds and hundreds of workers over a 2 to 3 year period, as well as an expansion of that economy over that 2 to 3 year period to support those workers. And so where will they put them?
And so we got to hear about their ideas and how they hope to rapidly build housing, which could help all of us if we could think about those same mechanisms. So it's great to just hear what was happening, and then the afternoon was a developer panel having developers present different projects that had been built across these counties, and then a couple of developers with ideas that we think could work. So I think it was a great opportunity to hear a lot about housing across the entire region, and then for networking. One of the things we really encouraged people in the room to do was to listen for something that sounded interesting, and then on one of the breaks that we gave, go find that person. Learn more about it and how you can bring it home to your community, and of course we did the same. So it was a pleasure to convene and organize that. I was exhausted at the end of the day, I will tell you, I'm still a little exhausted. But the energy in the room was phenomenal. People were very, very excited about the opportunity to come together and learn from one another and bring things forward. So it was a great day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you for what you did.
Thank you.
Any other comments or
Well,
concerns?
Commissioner Yamamoto and I had the chance last night to go to the Pacific City Nestucca Valley Chamber Annual Banquet, which was lovely. It was very nice. It was well attended and just heartwarming. It was nice to be together again after some COVID years, and it was wonderful. The speaker was Bill Oram, who grew up in South Tillamook County, and his mom was a music teacher. She was my son's music teacher, Mrs. Oram, and he went to journalism school, and he went off and had an exciting career as a sports writer, and he worked with the Headlight Herald when he was young, and he worked with the Lakers. He followed Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. He had a bunch of great stories about that, and now he is the sports columnist for the Oregonian. So that was just great. It was a terrific presentation that he made, and we celebrated some people in South Tillamook County who were honored for various things, and it was a really nice event, I thought.
It was a great evening. It really was. The night before, Commissioner Scar and I were at the Tillamook Working Lands and Waters holiday event at the Tillamook Chamber office. That also was terrific. I got to tell board members of Tillamook Working Lands and Waters that we have a county college class this year, and we need to take them on tour as we've done in the past. And so they're absolutely in agreement with that. One of the problems is the legislature is going to be in session, a long session. So we would normally do this maybe in May or June, but because of the legislative session, I think the commissioners are all going to be tied up going to Salem. So I asked if we could do this maybe in mid to late July. Things are busy that time of year, but I think maybe we can put something together. So that's going to be fun. There's just so many things going on in Tillamook County, always. And I got chastised for saying this, I think last Wednesday. But again, Tillamook County really does lead Oregon in so many different ways. It just boggles my mind. It really does how this little county is so forward thinking. So we need to keep that moving forward.
Maybe we could have that Working Lands and Waters tour to time it with the fair. It'd be really fun to have some
Either just before or just after.
To have some visiting, yes, to have some visiting commissioners.
That's the
come to
first
our
night.
fair.
Do they do the Pig and Fort on Wednesday night?
Every day.
They start on
They
Wednesday,
do
'cause you
every
could do
day.
it
They do
like,
it every day.
you could do it like
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
So they could do the Working Lands and Waters tour and invite them all to stay over and go to with Family Day on Wednesday, which is, I think, the best day to go to the fair anyway.
We do have the best fair in the state. It'd be
Yeah,
a
we
fun
do.
thing to share.
Wow. Okay, that's.
Not to make it too complex, but David, there's one day of the whole summer that we think will work.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we'll work on that. That's a good idea, though. That is.
Yeah.
That is.
So I would share one other thing a meeting that I attended, and I forget which day, I apologize, it's been a lot of days. But we had the first stakeholder advisory committee for the Highway 6 study. And it was an opportunity for folks to come together and talk about what are the concerns that we have on Highway 6 as stakeholders. And we had
Heather Taxtall, Wald Taxtall was there from Swall Trucking. We had folks with transportation, we had interested folks, we had folks who lived up on Highway 6. So ODOT's taken care to curate a really good group of people with a variety of perspectives to serve as the stakeholder advisory committee for the study. It was a great jumping off point, a great beginning. They will also be doing some tabling out in Tillamook County, and we'll let folks know when that's gonna happen. So you can go and talk to them directly about your concerns about Highway 6. They had one quick tabling event in front of Safeway. It was right at the beginning of November, and they said they have a lot of people come and tell them, you know, where they're, because they're looking for exactly where are your areas of concern. Do you have a milepost that you just really need to tell them about? Do you have thoughts about improvements that could be made? So this process with the study that is open up now is fabulous, and just keep your eyes open for opportunities to contribute your comments. Yeah.
Anything else?
There was something that flashed through my mind, and I can't, it was very quick, and I know Representative Weber was at our housing summit. She was also at the Tillamook Working Lands and Water, so it's a great opportunity.
And our chamber event last evening.
Yeah, great
She gets
opportunity.
around.
Yeah, for her to hear all of what was happening in housing in her area. And we have some conversations around legislative concepts for housing that we put in front of her as well. So we look forward to hopefully some of those making it into this legislative session. There's a lot going to be popping in this legislative session around housing in particular, but I'm sure lots of other areas as well. So.
Yes, with over 4,400 potential bills being brought to this legislative session. It's not much.
One of the other things was that we had a staff person for Representative Bonamici,
Okay, yeah,
who will be taking over our area in January thanks to our redistricting. We are shuffling, so Suzanne Bonamici will be taking over here. And so her staff person was also at the Housing Summit.
Perfect.
He was very excited. He said, I want to get to know all of the commissioners in Tillamook County, and I really want to make sure I know everything that's going on. So I'll make sure that if you all don't have his contact information yet, that you get it and can reach out. Okay, can reach out and talk about the issues that you guys are particularly advocating for. But it was wonderful to have him in attendance.
Yep, great, super. Okay, anything else? Perfect. Time being 10:41 a.m. We will. No, I need to read the board announcements first. Sorry. Item number 15, board announcements, other meetings and announcements. The commissioners will hold a workshop on Monday, December 5th, 2022, at 1 p.m. with John Updo. That's passed. That was yesterday. Sorry. Commissioners will hold a board briefing on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly commissioner updates. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Conference Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149. Conference ID 736-023-979#. The Commissioners will attend a Tillamook Lightwave meeting on December 12th, 2022 at 11:30 a.m. Meeting ID 899-5732-9678, passcode 130579. Also, the second public hearing scheduled for December 14, 2022 at 10:30 a.m. regarding proposed ordinance number 88 in the matter of a business license fee within unincorporated Tillamook County has been canceled. With that, time being 10:42 a.m., with no further business before us, we will adjourn this board meeting. Thank you, everyone.